Hello everybody, this is Kurgan here, and today we are talking about the DayZ Standalone. Now, this isn't something that I have talked about before. I played a lot of DayZ in the summer of 2012, and as many of you have seen, my WarZ video collection is probably my most popular stuff on my channel. I'm really looking forward to the standalone, and there's been a lot of news released about it since. Hopefully it's going to be coming out this summer, so I want to take the opportunity to talk about it. Now, before that, there's been people who have mentioned my microphone quality on my channel. Well, I just picked up a new headset. I picked up some Astro A40s, so let me know how this sounds. As far as I can tell, it sounds a lot better. So I don't sound nearly as nasally like I did with my old headset. It kind of sounded like my nose was plugged, like I just did there. So anyways, on to some standalone information. Now, they've been trying to release dev blogs, they've said every week, but it kind of seems like it's almost monthly. So some of this information is going to be from last month, and some of it's going to be from the dev blog that I think was just released yesterday, which was the 14th. It might have been released today, which is the 15th. So there's some new and some kind of older information. Now, the big thing is that they're moving away from client-side server structure. Now, what that means is with the mod and with ArmA, a lot of stuff is spawned client-side zombies and items and such. So they don't have a ton of control over that kind of stuff. Now, that allows item duping and other things. With the MMO server structure, everything will be client-side. Your inventory and your character will be client-side and all that other good stuff. So it's going to be a lot harder to dupe items. And which should make the game a lot more fair because duping items kind of sucks, you know. So that'll put everybody on a much more balanced ground, and it'll also help weed out the hackers, seeing as they'll be able to detect more things on their end. Now, speaking of that MMO server structure, we're going to talk about loot spawns a little bit. Now, they have basically two different levels that they can spawn loot at. They can spawn it at the database level and the server level. Now, it sounds like they would like to rotate as much as they possibly can to the database level. And from my understanding, what that means is basically the loot isn't going to be the same. Like, you're not going to go to the military base and there's not always going to be this chance for this gun here, like every time. It will be a little bit more varied than that. It'll be like, let's say there is one A50 out there on the server. If the server knows that there is an A50 there, it's probably not going to spawn another one. At least that's my understanding of how it works, is that it'll try and balance the items on the server, and it won't be numerous A50s at numerous locations. That's just an example. Now, they've said that basically they're not going to be able to go completely to the database system, so it's probably going to be some sort of mix between the two, and they want to fall more onto the database side, but they will still have some server side loot. So it should create a little bit more dynamic looting system, and you can't really ever go wrong with that. Now, the next thing that they talked about, there's a lot of talk of zombies because obviously it's a zombie game. Well, first we're going to talk about zombie spawning. Now, previously in the mod, you knew if somebody was in a town. If you came up to a town and you seen zombie spawn, you knew that somebody had to be within, I believe it was 200 meters, which is pretty damn close considering that in DayZ, a lot of the guns, or a lot of the used weapons are snipers. Everybody snipes. Close quarters combat really doesn't happen that often. So 200 meters was a dead giveaway. And they're trying to move away from that, and that's once again also going to do with the MMO server structure and everything being server-side, is that the zombies won't be client-side. They won't be determined based on you being close to the town. They're just going to be there. So that's awesome. Now, what that's going to allow is also migrating zombies. Now, think of the Walking Dead zombie herds. They won't just be in towns. They'll be in the woods. They'll travel. So there always is going to be that danger. You're not going to be able to just take off sprinting through the woods and be safe. So it adds a little bit more realism effect to it. A little bit more. Don't just sprint through the woods in the dark because there might be something that gets you. So always that little scare factor there to keep you on your toes. Now, talking about survival, they've been talking about a health system, and I'm not talking about just food or being hungry or being thirsty like in the DayZ mod. They're going beyond that. There's going to be a diet, I guess it sounds like. Now, if you play the mod, there's beans and there's, I believe, candy bars and chips. You know, there's junk food. So, and it doesn't matter what you eat. It might restore a little bit more blood or something like that, but otherwise food is food. It's going to be just fine for you. Whereas in the standalone, that's not going to be true. Your health is going to depend on your diet, and if you eat candy bars and bags of chips and you don't eat those beans, or you don't kill some animals and cook some meat up, you're going to have poor health. Now, what that means, they haven't really said, but it's a cool concept. And another thing that they touched on was medical specialists. Now, that's all they really said was medical specialists. What does that mean? Is that a hint at a talent tree? I really don't know, but it very well could be. If somebody has got some sort of medical talent, they would be needed by other people in the community. It would create some sort of sense of community, and it would not allow just PvP. You might say, I'm hurt here, and I could really use a medical specialist, and I have these items or that I can give you, or something like that, instead of just PvP. Allow people to band together and rely on each other, which is kind of a cool concept. So we'll see if there's talent trees or not, but that kind of is what it seems like, especially if they're leaning towards the MMO side of things. And talking about sense of community and working with other players, they are talking about in-game radios. Now, in the mod, you just could talk locally. It was, I don't know, 40, 50 meters, something like that, and you could just speak, which was really cool because there was scenarios where I banded up with other people that I didn't know. I mean, it didn't happen often, but the few times that it did, it was a lot of fun. There was a guy who saved my friend who just happened to be riding by on a bike. My friend had a broken leg, and this guy had morphine, and he just rode by on a bike, gave my friend morphine, and continued on his way. That was awesome. It's really nice to not just have to PvP with people, but to also have those stories of community involvement and running across other players that are friendly. So in-game radios aren't going to add anything new in that kind of area. But what they're going to do is add a sense of immersion, because it's not just a local chat. You actually have a radio. You have to, I think, craft these radios. I know you can find them, but they're talking a lot about a crafting system, so I'm assuming you can craft them. Now, there's going to be basically two types of radios. If you just have the radio, it's going to be a local broadcast. It'll basically go out through the speakers. So if you want to talk to players locally, you'll just carry around one and just broadcast throughout the speaker. Now, if you want it to be secretive, if you, let's say, don't have Skype or just want to do this for an immersion factor and feel like actually in the world and you have to use headsets, you can attach a headset to them, and now it will be personal just for you. So the people that do want to use that kind of immersion factor and use a headset in game, they'll probably carry around two. You carry around one for global broadcast to talk to other people that aren't with your group, and you'll carry around another one with a headset on it, or I'm not sure if you'll be able to take the headset off. That's a possibility as well. So it's more of an immersion thing, and I think that it's really cool instead of just having a global chat. It's the little things that count, at least to a lot of people, and I think that that's really cool that they're doing something like that. Now, talking more about immersion and feeling like you're part of the world, and that's the direction that the whole MMO is taking, or the MMO server-side structure and in-game radios and the health system, and it's all about immersion with ArmA and with DayZ. That's the point of the engine. They're taking some big strides in character creation. They want to offer more ethnicities to players. There's going to be some screens in here that are going to show you some options that you're going to have. There's male and female characters, and they're going to be done better, so there's not going to be any sort of like females can't wear ghillie suits or something stupid like that. So that's really cool. There's going to be a lot of clothing options, and this is the thing that they said that they're working on a lot when it's coming to release. So I think that they're pretty happy with a lot of the systems in the game, the map, and other things, and that they want to get this customization out there for you, because this is going to be more, I like my character. I want him to be a little bit different. I want him to stand out, and your group can have a certain look to it instead of just having a different face or different glasses. You can say we're all going to wear this outfit so we can recognize each other, and that's really cool. So it adds a little bit more to your character and should make you feel a little bit more personalized with it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the inventory and the crafting systems. One of the biggest complaints with the DayZ mod was the inventory system. Sometimes it worked fine, other times it didn't, giving items to other players. Sometimes you could drop it on the ground and it would stay, or sometimes it would just fall through the earth, or you could put it in their backpack, and sometimes that would stay, or sometimes it would just disappear. The safest thing that I found was putting items in things. Like, you could put items in a campfire, kind of strange. Or you could gut a cow and then jam some cans of beans and an AK in there. So some funny stuff, but that seemed to be the best way to do it, was to kind of transfer items like that, and even that was iffy. So the inventory system was kind of crappy. If you wanted to switch to a secondary weapon, you needed to open up your bag and swap things around, and it was just kind of a pain. And they've been making a lot of advancements in this direction, which is awesome, because inventory polishing is a really big thing. If an inventory is clunky, it really ruins a gaming experience, especially when you're in combat and you're trying to switch a weapon around. Now, to mix in with that is the new crafting system. As I talked about above, character customization is a goal of theirs, and beyond character customization, weapon customization. There's going to be a lot of crafted items, and I'm not sure if it's just going to be for weapons or if you'll be able to craft clothing to wear or whatnot. So, but as far as they've talked about specifically weapons so far, all the weapons for this game have been developed from scratch, so they're not just using the weapons that come from the ArmA game. They made the weapons all from the ground up, which means at launch the game is going to have less weapons than we might be used to, but they'll also be able to implement weapons as they go, and when they do implement them, they're going to be able to get attachments on them and such, instead of like the DayZ mod, you would find a weapon with a scope on it, or you couldn't attach anything to these weapons. So it's going to add some more personalization. If you have some scopes and such that you like, you're not really going to want to lose these items, and you will be able to craft them as well. Who knows if you'll be able to craft anything like bipods or different stocks. So it'd be really cool to see that kind of stuff. And the other thing, and this is going to tie in a lot with crafting as well, is there is going to be item degradation. Now, the rate at which this will happen, or what will cause it to happen, is a good question. Will it happen when you're running around? Will it happen when you're firing weapons? Will it happen to your clothing? Will you need to make new shirts or whatnot? That's all good questions, and hopefully it's something that they'll answer sometime soon. But the crafting, we know, is going to tie into this, because obviously as things degrade, hopefully with the crafting, you'll be able to repair them, and if not repair them, at least make new versions so you can throw out your old damaged version. So cool stuff, and hopefully they continue talking about this and delving into it and explaining exactly how the degradation is going to tie in with crafting. Now, if you've watched any of the dev blogs or looked into any of the other information on this game, we all know that the mod took place in Chernarus, and that's not changing for the standalone. Now, I don't see that as a huge deal. Chernarus was already a really big map, and I enjoyed it. It had a lot of different scenery, and it was a really nice map. So what they're moving to is Chernarus Plus, and they're making it bigger, and they're redoing some towns. They're adding a lot of different buildings. They're adding new towns. As the last I heard, they redid recently 7 towns, and they've added 2 towns up north. So it's going to be the same Chernarus, but it's going to be bigger, and it's going to have a lot of new areas, and not just towns. I've seen a marsh and some other things, so it's going to be a different map. You'll still be able to probably recognize it from if you played the mod, but it's going to have some new content to it, so it's going to be a lot of fun to go back through the world and see the changes that they have introduced. And next we're going to talk about zombie pathfinding. It was not very good in the mod, and not only that, but the way they moved in general, their speed and going up and down hills and that kind of stuff. And it sounds like they're trying to get away from gimmick effects like running through houses and having zombies slow down because they run so fast outside. That was the way to get away from them, was to run into a house or run up or down a hill. So basically how the system worked in DayZ mod was that the zombies followed your path. They didn't try and get to you, they tried to follow you, and that's why they had to be faster than you, because they weren't ever going to catch you following your path if they ran at the same speed. So now they've done some work to make the zombies actually try and get to you. Now, it's obviously not perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but it's a lot better. They've followed a much tighter path, and that allowed them to slow down their run speed. And the big problem with the run speed as well was it caused issues with clipping. If you ever ran upstairs and you've seen zombies try and come upstairs, many times they didn't. And if they did, they would run through the stairs, through the wall, glitch back in, glitch upstairs, and smack you, break your leg, and that was it. You die so easily in these types of games, especially if your leg gets broken, and that's a pain. that really ruins somebody's day when they lose their character because something just snapped through a wall. And so slowing down the zombies has fixed that problem. And now the zombies will slow down for stairs and walk up the stairs, and they're not all crazy and sprinting around. And they also have removed that soldier AI. If you noticed before, the zombies would zigzag. That was because they were trying to dodge bullets, basically. They were using soldier AI because, well, I mean, it was a mod. It was a great mod, but there was still factors from it that tied into ArmA that weren't really able to be changed. And now they have been able to change that going into the AI. These aren't soldiers anymore. These are actual zombies. So some really big improvements in those fields. Now, speaking of that, we're also going to talk about animations, both with zombies and with players. Because another complaint, like the inventory with the mod, was animations. They're kind of choppy. ArmA isn't the biggest series, it's not like Battlefield or Call of Duty. So they're great looking games, but their animations are not the best done. And so they've been working on that a lot. They did a dev blog about a month ago showing motion capture, trying to get some new motions set up that look a lot better. They've also worked on a new skeleton for everything. And with these new skeletons and these new animations come new zombie melee animations, which is kind of what they were showing in the last dev blog. Not necessarily melee animations, but I think like eating animations is what they were showing, something like that. So they're trying to make it look a lot more realistic and not so, the soldier animations aren't obviously meant for zombies. It kind of swung their hands in the air, and it was really crazy. So it should be much more immersive, just watching the zombies walk around and chase around and do their types of things. So really cool to see that. And then they actually talk about animations for animals. Now, this blog was mostly about zombie and player animations, but they have been talking about, or their example is the deer. Now, they didn't have a deer in the mod, so that raises the question is, how many more animals are there actually going to be? What are their differences? We already talked about the health system. What are the differences going to be between hunting these animals? How much meat are you going to get? How good is it going to be for you? So it'd be really cool if they add a bunch of animals. Once again, this ties back into the immersion. It's going to feel like you're in a real world. Granted, it's an apocalypse, but that's where you'll feel like you are instead of just running around and finding players and zombies. There's actually going to be animals in the world too, so that's really cool. Now, the last thing that they talked about in animations was player animations. If you played the mod, the animations were basically soldiers. The skin was the only civilian-looking skin they had, which is the reason it was really low textured, because they wanted you to be a civilian, but they modded a military game, and there's only one civilian-esque skin in the game, and that's the one they had to use. Well, since they've been redoing zombie animations and the animal animations, they also redid the player animations and the player skeleton, and it's going to be more civilian. I don't know if they're going to try and find a little bit of a balance, because, I mean, obviously, if you're in this type of setting, you're going to be more military mindset. No, you might not be trained professionally by the military, but I'm sure they'll strike some sort of chord that balances in between the two, and it's going to be, a little bit different than what was in the mod. And last but not least, let's talk about community involvement. Now, the community has been really big in the development of the DayZ mod, because basically once they started working on the standalone and Dean Hall got hired by Bohemia, they kind of stopped working on the mod. I think they did a few more touch-ups, nothing crazy, but they kind of just set it in the community's hands. The community has come up with some patches, and since they've done such a good job with that, Dean Hall has kind of turned to them and said, if you guys want to help out, let's see your submissions, basically. And it sounds like they've been working on some books for the game, some lore for the background of the zombie apocalypse. So that's one of the things they've been working on. But they've also been working on some other things like new male character meshes to fit in with the new skeletons. And so that's kind of cool to see that they're actually having some detailed work in the game. This isn't just, writing books for the game, but they're actually working on some things like models and animations and some pretty serious stuff. And beyond that, now we've talked about the crafting system and the complete reintegration of brand new weapons. They've also been working on that kind of stuff, something to do with an M4A1 and all the attachments made for that as well. And they're working on new items for the game. Now, some of the things they've been working on are gas mask, pilot helmet, Mauser rifle, pen and paper, can opener. So some things are, weapons, some are clothing, some are, pen and paper. That's kind of an interesting one. How is this really going to tie into the interaction with the world? Are you going to be able to write people notes and leave, tips, or maybe set up traps with notes? Kind of cool stuff. It sounds like there's going to be a lot more, with the books. There's going to be a lot more interaction with the world. So we'll see how far they really take this, and if they can strike a really nice balance between an MMO, which MMOs are notorious for not having much effect on the world, because while you're in a server with a lot of people, how can you really have an effect on the world? And single player games, which are, you're allowed to, like, we'll use Fallout 3 for an example. You can blow up an entire town with a nuke, so if they can find some sort of balance between that where the player can actually have an effect on the world. I mean, granted, yes, writing notes is a small thing, but we'll see how far they can really take it. So just some really cool stuff. They hopefully keep releasing dev blogs. I guess Dean Hall is supposed to be climbing Mount Everest now, so maybe they won't be doing one within the next week, but it sounds like they want to release one every Friday, and hopefully they can do that, because I think that the standalone's supposed to start alpha beta in June-ish, maybe July, so that's 2 months away. So really looking forward to it, and hopefully this information was new to you guys, or some of it was, or you just didn't mind hearing it again. Let's hear your opinions. Do you want to continue hearing these kind of updates from me, and some more information about DayZ and my opinions on it? If so, leave it in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.